Shalom Aleichem, Erev Tov, good evening. We are back in the writings of Rabbenu Rambam, laws of Teshuvah, but yesterday we ended off about the Lashon Hara, and I said that we would speak about it a little bit. And that's exactly where I'm going right now. I'm going to read to you now from a book of Moyarav Yaakov Peretz on the Kabbalah Mishkamo that I typed up. So this book I took from his handwriting, and I made it into a book, and he printed it. There are some mistakes in this book, and it bothered him a lot in his life that there were a few typos. And I ask his neshama forgiveness for the typos that are in the book. But he did write in the beginning of the book, he put my name and my wife's name in the front, in a different book. And that is something I'm grateful that I had the zechut to do. I thought of doing an edition with English in it. Harav Peretz speaks about Lashon Hara and says that seemingly this is one of the greatest averot in the whole Torah, from the amount of literature that our rabbis speak about this, that you see that it's a tremendous averah. He mentions at the bottom in one of his footnotes, Etzah lihinatzel mishon hara mishem Rabbi Eliyahu Lopian. Says there's advice on how to save yourself from Lashon Hara from a famous Ashkenazi Musar master. I think his name was Rav Eliyahu Lopian. Yes. Is Eliyan Ashkenazi short for Eliyahu? Yeah. So he was Shabbat lo medaberim kelal lazulat. Then on Shabbat we don't talk about other people at all. It's a good way to save yourself from Lashon Hara. I'm listening, Rabbi. I'm listening. Hamilim, the words who, he, him, hen, lo la'askiram klal b'Shabbat. The words he, him, they, them, all the pronouns, don't use them on Shabbat. On Shabbat, your preferred pronouns are none. We don't talk about other people on Shabbat. ועל ידי זה יושפע האדם שלא ייכשל בלשון הרע גם מאחור. Instead of that if on Shabbat you practice not to use any of those words, he, she, they, them, then you likely will never speak it even in the days of the week. Nalif. Nalif in Aramaic means we learn out from here. We learn something from here. Nalif in the writings of Harav Peretz always stands for Nirali Yaakov Peretz. It appears to me Yaakov Peretz. Kasher lo medaberim al hazulat. When we don't talk about other people, nizharim mimela gam mikina sina. We save ourselves from jealousy, from hatred, v'rigshot tsar, and feelings of pain, u'nekama, and revenge. U'mimela mitpanim devarim tovim. And because you free yourself from all of those negative feelings, you then can focus on positive things. For example, Torah, Shira, learning Torah, singing songs. Hitanyenut ha'adam be'atzmo, focusing on yourself, uvevnei veto, and in your family, letukunam, to fix yourself and your family. Do you want to talk about people? Talk about yourself and your family on Shabbat. Talk about Lashon Hara about ourselves. Not in a negative way. These are things we should do better. These are things we should focus on. These are what we should talk about. If you want to talk about something, talk about that. If you want to talk about something, talk about Torah. If you want something, sing songs. By the way, singing songs is a very important part of Shabbat. It's a very important part of Shabbat. I once spoke with a group of young people, all of whom grew up in houses that kept Shabbat, but they themselves didn't keep Shabbat. And I was curious to ask the question, how many of you sing songs at Shabbat in your house? You see this? I do this a lot when people come, guests come. I say, what song do they sing in your house on Shabbat? You ever hear me ask that question? And they tell me, they don't know. They have songs on Shabbat. All of the children in the room, kimat, all of them said that they grew up in a house that did not sing songs on Shabbat. Shabbat all becomes about not ripping toilet paper, how many cups of hot water you put the tea in the tea bag, first the tea bag, after the tea bag. It becomes, do you open bottles on Shabbat? Do you not open bottles? Cans, upside down, make a hole in the bottom, pickles, I don't know, all kinds of ridiculous things people do on Shabbat, don't do on Shabbat. But actual Shabbat, they don't do. the enjoyment of Shabbat, the Kedusha of Shabbat. Our rabbis wrote beautiful songs. The Ashkenazi ones and the Sephardi ones. Wrote beautiful songs for Shabbat. You should sing, you should know the words, you should know what they mean. Even our Kehillat, we could add more songs. It's important. By the way, notice he didn't say dancing. When? On Shabbat, you're not allowed to dance. Yeah. What? Just like,
We dance around it.
that's not dancing. Just like you can't clap on Shabbat. Just like you can't drum on Shabbat. Those are isurim of Shabbat. But singing, you can sing on Shabbat. So, Rav Peretz writes the following. Because Lashon Hara is such a big deal, and he mentions the book of the Chavetz Chaim being a very important book, he then says the following thing, but it's hard. It's hard because you never know what you can say. As he says the following. Omnam, after I tell you how important it is not to speak Lashon Hara, mutar lesaper Lashon Hara, it's permissible to speak Lashon Hara, במטרה להציל אדם שלא ינזק, in order to save a person so they don't get hurt. והנה הכללים, מתי מותר לספר לשון הרע, and the rules of when you're allowed to speak לשון הרע, הסימן הוא לשון מדברת גדולות. The tongue that speaks a lot. So which tongue speaks a lot? Says Rav Peretz, I'm going to use that word of לשון מדברת גדולות in order to help you learn the laws of לשון הרע. So write it down. The word מדברת is mem, daled, bet, resh, taf. And it says the following. Mem, miniat nezek. Holding back, stopping damage. כאשר המטרה בסיפור לשון הרע למנוע נזק והפסד. If the reason I'm telling you לשון הרע, remember לשון הרע is true or false? True, it has to be true. So לשון הרע, I'm telling it to you in order so that you don't get hurt. Give me an example.
Somebody tells you they're gonna attack and you.
Okay, that's great. You know that this guy is going to go punch his friend tomorrow in the Beit HaKnesset. So you warn him in advance. Be prepared. You know two people are going to get involved in a business matter, and you happen to know real information, true information, that could cause this person to really suffer if they get involved in business with that person. Shidduchim. Now, I rarely, if ever, agree to be involved in shidduchim.
If someone is having a relationship outside of marriage, it's one of the spouses.
Okay, I'm saying shidduchim before marriage first. Yeah, in shidduchim, here's the chazakah in shidduchim. Listening? Almost everyone involved in shidduchim are liars. Almost everyone. I know that in Orthodoxy, they've turned shidduchim into the other baby, they're like their love child of kiruv and shidduchim. Two words that if you're involved in these things in the Orthodox community, Jewish outreach and Jewish matchmaking, you get next place, blah blah blah, all the kind of promises. But I'm telling you now, almost everyone involved in shidduchim are liars. Everybody. And if they're not lying intentionally, they're not telling you everything. They're blurring things. They're avoiding to tell you things you need to know. It's okay. If you are speaking to people, I need this one that way. So, if you are, look, I once met a young lady who went on a shidduch in Monsey, New York. And she went on the shidduch, and she's sitting across from the guys. Oh, tell me about your parents. Shadchani didn't tell me anything about your family. She says, yeah, you know. She said, but I want to know more about your parents. So tell me about your mom. Oh, my mom, she's dead. Okay, this is a true story I want to tell you now. Okay, well, what about your father? Is he still alive? Yeah. Oh, tell me about him. Oh, we don't talk so much. She's like pulling teeth over here. You know? Why not? He's in prison. Abraham, why is he in prison? He killed the mother. You think you should tell a girl that before she goes in the shidduch? I'm not telling you that somebody, this poor guy, he must be living in hell of hells. He lost his mother. That's a crazy life. But I think it's okay to let a person know in advance the guy you're going out with. It's not that we forgot to tell you about his family. This is the family he's from. By the way, don't think no. I'm not being prejudiced against this person. My family also has murderers and thieves and robbers and rapists. So does yours. Who is Lavan? Who is he to us? An uncle. Who is? Give me names. Go. Esav. You can imagine that someone is not going to marry Yaakov because his brother is a murderer? Or maybe somebody won't marry Yitzchak because his brother is a murderer. His brother is a terrorist. Or maybe somebody won't marry. Then our forefathers have. I'm not telling you that a person is judged based on things they never did. But when you don't tell me something, and then I find out, it feels like you were trying to trick me. That's what it feels like.
In a society that everything matters, it's very hard to be honest.
But my assumption is that everybody who's honest, right. So when I find out that someone's being dishonest, the point is, what else are you hiding? By the way, you know what happened to me once? I have a friend who's a chassid. When he found out that I was dating my wife, he said, Yonatan, run for the mountains. I said, why? He said, because you don't know this world. He said, if her family is letting her get married to you, it's because there's something severely wrong with her, and they're trying to get rid of her. And you're only going to find out the next day when you wake up after the wedding. True story? I said, and I laughed and I said, her family doesn't let me even, they don't even want me to know her. I said, oh, in that case, you should marry her. I mean, if they wanted me, then for sure there's a problem. It's truth what I tell you. It's true story. Mamash true story. So the first thing, you're allowed to speak to another person in order to save them from harm. Diuk. Precision. Thank you. לא להוסיף על מה שאתה יודע, על זה שמדבר עליו, אלא בדיוק. Speak בדיוק, which is precision, precisely. You know, I know that Bob stole from John $300. That's what I know. I don't know that he's a thief. I don't know that he's a crook. I don't know that he steals from everybody. I just know that the last guy he did business with, he stole $300. So say the story like that. Don't make up more. Don't say, oh, he's a gangster, he works with the cartel. No, it's not. Those are things you're making up. By the way, it could. That's the next one. ב' ברור. שהדבר ברור לך ואמת שכך הוא. It has to be clear to you that this is the truth. לא ספק, it's not maybe. ולא דמיון, it's not your imagination. ולא שמע מאדם אחר, that I heard from somebody else that person, you know, when there's smoke, there's fire. No, that's not how you say things. If you don't know, shut your mouth. Period. And if you know, don't be quiet. Speak, but speak with precision. And speak in order to save another person from damage. אלא בדבר ברור ואמת. You have to make sure that what you're saying is true, and it's clear, and it's factual. By the way, in the US, we have laws against slandering somebody. So if you accuse somebody of something and it's not true, you get in trouble for that. By the way, in Israel, it's fantastic. In Israel, people make a lot of money off of their hotzat diba lawsuits. All day long, people suing each other for slandering each other, which is why in Israel it's very difficult to get reviews on businesses. I learned this the hard way, by the way. I once saw someone post on Facebook a negative experience they had in a coffee shop, and 100 people commented on their post saying, "We recommend you take the post down because this coffee shop has a reputation that they make extra money on the side by slapping lawsuits on all the people who write about them on social media." That's not okay, by the way. But that could be a reality in a corrupt legal system. So that's something that you need to know. רמז, רש, מדברת, רש. אם אפשר למנוע הנזק מבלי לספר לשון הרע, if you can avoid the damage, you can accomplish the same end goal without actually saying לשון הרע. עדיף ואסור לספר לשון הרע. So it's better to just avoid לשון הרע. כגון, for example, בשידוך, when it comes to שידוכים, לומר לו, עולה, you could just tell him or her, עזוב שידוך זה. Just don't get involved. Don't do it. לא מתאימים. You guys are not a match. That's obviously before they even met each other, so there's a reason to assume that they would trust you. אמנם אם לא יועיל למנוע נזק, אלא רק על ידי שמספר לשון הרע, שהוא אמת, הוא ברור, הוא מדויק, כנ"ל, אז מותר לספר. But if you know that unless you actually say everything, they're not going to listen to you, then you say everything. But here's a good example. Let's say there's somebody in the community who trusts me. And I know that they're going to get involved in something that's not good for them, but I know that they trust me. And I'll tell them the following sentence. Listen, I don't want to tell you things I shouldn't tell you. All I'm telling you is, do me a favor, do you a favor, don't get involved with that person. And I see that the person says, okay, I won't. I don't have to say the Shana. I already accomplished the end goal without saying what needs to be said. Now, I'm not telling you, the point of this is not to cover up for the person. The point is to try to stop this cycle of Lashon Hara. And sometimes you speak because you have to stop the cycle of the criminal on the other end. So that's another reason. But I'm here speaking very specifically about this example. And then taf is to'elet. To'elet means that it should be conducive. אם תספר, ישמע לך ויועיל למנוע נזק, אבל אם לא ישמע, אסור לספר. It has to be that you know the person you're talking to will listen to you. But if I know, I'm going to speak Lashon Hara, and it's true, and it's to save a person from damage, and it's accurate, and it's precise, but they're not going to listen to me, so there's no point of speaking. Because all you did then is share something about somebody else for no reason. And here, רק בכללים אלה, במלואם יהיה מותר לספר לשון הרע. With these principles, you can then speak לשון הרע. These are easy to remember. It's 5 words. מניעת נזק, דיוק, בירור, רמז, תועלת. 5 words, you know them. And then you know what you can say and you can't say. And it's very common that one of these boxes will work for you. That you'll be able to speak. But then you're now conscious how you speak, how accurately you speak, how precisely you speak, how truthfully you speak. And then you're already not, I can't say anything. You don't allow people to get hurt because you won't speak. It's very important. I tell this to the kids a lot. Somebody's picking on me at school. Tell me who it is. I don't want to say it. It's not a problem of the Lashon Hara to speak about the person who's picking on you at school. It's not a problem. We need to know to talk to the teacher. We need to know to talk. It's important. It's not a good thing to use the prohibitions of the Lashon Hara to cover up the actions of bad people. We're not in the business of enabling abusers and bad people and criminals and thieves. We're talking in a normally good and just society. We don't want to be peddling each other's dirty laundry everywhere. None of us are perfect. None of us have histories that are clean, squeaky clean. None of us have presents that are perfect. And all we're asking is, unless there's a reason for you to share my dirty laundry with somebody, please don't. Zev, the example that you brought up, the reason I avoided mentioning it was because of the last one. I've seen numerous times that in such a situation, likely one of the partners knows. And they're in denial. And all that happens when you bring it up, pain and anger towards you, and never stopping the behavior. I find 9 times out of 10 that people who try to help couples going through a divorce, almost always, they stay together and they throw you to the trash. It's not a reason not to help people, but you probably have experience like this. It's not a reason not to help people, but it's the reason I chose not to go down that road, because for whatever reason, I found it to be, it's the least effective place to get involved with people. usually the loyalty there is much deeper, or the dysfunction is much deeper, in the sense of, like, I knew a person, she got divorced and remarried at least 3 or 4 times in my lifetime. Every time to the same type of idiot. Every single time. Like if you had to choose them out of a lineup, you would choose these people for them. Because they have a tendency to go back to the same garbage that they... HaShamayim say, "Kelev hachozer el keo." There are dogs, sorry, I'm going to gross you out. Everyone ate dinner already? Dogs are complicated animals to own. The people who own dogs, they have to feed them sometimes medication that makes their excrement taste bad. Because dogs eat their excrement. And to say a dog has worms, sorry, Rachel, this is just for you, this one. So another reason Rachel will never have a dog. Reason number 1032. This is yeah. But sometimes you have to make sure that he won't go and re-eat the worms that he just got. So then you have to stop the cycle somewhere, which is a crazy thing. Dogs you understand what HaShamayim say in the laws of Pesach? That it's not considered chametz if a dog won't eat it, because we have very low expectations from dogs. Dogs eat a lot of things. And so even a dog won't eat it, it's not chametz on Pesach. That's where we say a dog who returns to his vomit, because it's a gross thing to see. And we're saying there are people that they don't know how to get away from their problems. And they keep, like clockwork, they keep coming back to the same problems they have. And so sometimes you try to get involved, you want to help, but you told her the truth, you're trying to save them, but you don't fulfill the last part. These are people that don't listen. What does Shlomo HaMelech say? Al tochach letz penis ne'eka. Do not rebuke a fool. Don't give musar to a fool, because they will hate you. Penis ne'eka. Righteous people, when you give them musar, and say, wow, I didn't realize I was doing something wrong. I'm going to fix myself. Even if it will take me time. I appreciate that you told me that. What is a rasha? Most people are not like that. Most people, when you try to give them tochecha, they get upset at you. You went to help them. All of a sudden, you're the criminal. It would be better for you not to talk. It's not that you're trying to be complicit. It's not you're trying to support them. It's not you're trying to enable. It's really, there's not much you can do. There are many instances like this where you realize there's something wrong. There's nothing you can do. So what do you want me to do? Do you want me just to make them mad? What's the point of saying something? By the way, in general, in giving musar, it's an important rule. Only speak in a way and to people that will listen to you. So for example, there are some people, you can give them musar harshly, and okay, I didn't realize it was so bad. There's some people that unless you sugarcoat the musar, hello, my dear friend, I love you so much. I think you're the best person in the whole world. I never met a person as brilliant as you with such a good man. There's something that you do. You like to kill people on the weekend. I just want to, unless you say it like that, they're going to kill you the next weekend. So those people, you have to be very careful when you give them musar. So the way you give musar is important. But also who you give musar. There are some people, the chazakah, the rule is they don't listen. They don't accept what other people say about them. I'm going to ask you this question. You're not even going to tell me. I just want you to answer in your head. I'm sure that all of you know at least one person in your life, it could be you're even related to them, who never... Say what you want to say, Rabbanu.
No.
It could be that you know one person in your life who is not able, they're simply not able to say these 2 words. I'm sorry. They don't know how. They've never, in their whole life, done anything wrong. You know people like this? These people, you bump, watch. You're pushing your cart at Costco and you bump somebody. 2 people. One person, I'm so sorry, I wasn't paying attention. The other guy, hey, what are you doing in my way? What's wrong with you? You push the cart. Is it? This is a crazy thing. You have to be the kind of person, I'm sorry. And if you're talking to a person who doesn't know how to say the words, I'm sorry, don't speak to them. Don't give them the It's not going to help. You're just going to end up doing avirot and likely you'll hurt yourself. So, we started with this lesson from Rabbi Peretz. 5 rules, what you're allowed to say. And there are enough good people in the world to talk to that you have who to talk to. Let's look. Wow, it's really late. Okay, let's do what we can do. Watch. I knew this was going to happen. No, not the time. I knew this was going to happen. I'll say the benefit of not charging, because now imagine if I had to go charge it, I have to stop the class. So it's good that this one doesn't need to be charged. But or another battery pack that would keep charged. That's it. It's interesting. There are pros and cons to rechargeable things. Let's look together in the Rambam. You have yours? So I'll tell you what page we're on. Rabbi, you can find them on Laws of Teshuvah. Page 82 in the Laws of Teshuvah. Zev for us is going to be.
That's yesterday when we did Hilchot Rabbanu, and now we're jumping back to Hilchot Teshuvah.
Zev 231.
Page 82 on the left-hand column.
Don't worry, don't get so comfortable. I'm going to jump you again just a second. 1 second.
Yeah.
Rabbenu HaRambam writes that these 5 categories of people don't usually do Teshuvah because it's too hard for them to do Teshuvah. These averot are, once you get into the cycle. So one of them was, we spoke about Kehillat already, we spoke about Lashon Hara. The third one is called Uval Chema, a person who is an angry person. Maybe if you look with me back to the laws of Deot, chapter 2, Halacha 3, Zev for us it's 121. For you, Rabbani, that's going to be
Chapter 2, you said?
chapter 2, Halacha Gimel.
Okay, page 46, the bottom left. Where there's a big gimel. Page 46, bottom left column where there's a big gimel.
Gimel. You see Gimel? For you, it's Gimel 1. ויש דעות שאסור לו לאדם לנהוג בהן בבינונית. Even though the Rambam pushes us to walk on the middle path, always, he says there are some character traits that it's forbidden to be moderate about. You cannot be moderate in these areas. אלא יתרחק עד הקצה האחר. You have to go to the extreme to stay away from them. And therefore says the Rambam in Gimel 2, וכן הכעס, anger. Anger. דעה היא עד מאוד. It's a horrible character trait. וראוי לאדם שיתרחק ממנה עד הקצה האחר. It's important that a person should distance himself from anger to the extreme. וילמד עצמו שלא יכעוס. And he should train himself not to get angry. By the way, people usually get angry in a rage, like in a spur of the moment they get angry. But it has to do, even though it happens in a moment of rage, it has to do with habit. It's a habit that a person allows themselves to reach a place of anger. So you can train yourself to not get angry. Vafilu al davar, what do they call it in English? Anger management. It's important because anger is still going to be there. The question is, what do you do with it? How do you channel it?
It's the initial reaction will always be there. It's the secondary.
What do you do with it? Very nice. ואפילו על דבר שראוי לכעוס עליו. It's important, even if it's something that it's worth getting angry about, don't do it. ואם רצה להטיל אימה על בניו ובני ביתו, if a person needs to put the fear of God, sometimes as a parent, you have to put some fear in your home. Your children, it's not fear as in they should be terrified of you, but they should be nervous about doing bad things in front of you. That's part of the way you raise children. Uvnei beto, the people who work in your home. There are people that are around your house that their behavior also needs to be kept in check. By the way, a spouse also falls in this category. There's a stupid series of books. Haraperetz told me it doesn't even need geniza. It's a bunch of gardens. I'm going to leave it over there, okay? You understand? All the gardening books, buy them in Home Depot, not in Jewish bookstores. And in this book, they have a gardening book for husbands and a gardening book for wives. I'm not talking about gardening, okay? And in the book, it says, if your wife, anything she does to you, it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Anything your husband does to you is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If they scream at you and they curse at you and they hit you and it's all, don't get mad at them. They're just messengers of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Have emunah in the creator of the world. Harapel said this kind of book is in the trash. It doesn't even need geniza. What do you mean? Your spouse is going to hit you? Is going to curse at you? Is going to scream at you? Is going to degrade you? Is going to humiliate? And you're just going to say, oh, it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is a not normal relationship. And so you are also allowed to have ema in your home, meaning the person that you are married to should be allowed to know that you have boundaries. Harapel thought we had a rule. He said, you are a husband, you are a wife, you are not a doormat. It's not who you are. You didn't sign up for that job. But in our society, it's already common like that. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a husband, I'm a wife. It's not the place that I deserve in this home. You're allowed to stand up for that. And none of you are allowed to. You should. Yeah? It's the same God who hits them and beats them and screams at them, and they say it's all from Hashem. It's all connected with each other. Their sickness is on a multiple layers of sickness. You can imagine telling somebody that? Like, oh, your husband's screaming at you, your wife is beating you. It's okay. It's all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Have more emunah. It's a horribly, it's not just irresponsible, it's extremely dangerous. Extremely. Of course. Of course. But maybe it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let me go send him to meet HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like, that's not my problem. He has problems. He has problems with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Abraham, people find God in jail, don't they? Yeah. So, send him to meet HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what I meant. או על הציבור, אם היה פרנס. Let's say a person is a leader of the community. This could be a rabbi, it could be a mayor, it could be a governor, it could be a king, it could be someone who's a police officer, anyone who's in charge of the community has to make sure that the community has respect for that person. ורצה לכעוס עליהן כדי שיחזרו למוטב. And he knows he needs to be angry at them in order so they should do teshuvah and behave properly. How do you do it? יראה עצמו בפניהם שהוא כועס. You have to show yourself as if you're angry. כדי לייסרם. In order to translate the word for me. What does it mean, liyasaram? Usually people don't think something is serious until they realize, oh, that's a red line I just crossed. You're showing them anger because you know that, hey, you're not paying attention. I need to show you that I'm angry. But really, internally, you should be the calmest person in the world. You're like a person you're imitating an angry person, but you're not actually angry. Hanan, have you seen one of your parents before get really upset at somebody and then turn around and laugh? You've seen it before? Have you known you've seen it before? When one of the sisters gets in trouble and woo, and then I turn around and laugh. Why? I'm not actually angry. If you're actually angry, if your kids actually make you angry, you have a really big problem. You're 30, you're 40, you're 50, and a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 4-year-old makes you angry, there is something very wrong with you. Rather, you need to show anger because that's part of what you're doing to discipline. But you better be inside of yourself completely composed. You're imitating an angry person. I have a child who can cry on cue and stop on cue. That's a talent. I don't know that it's used currently in the wisest way, but that's the future of acting. That's a future of leadership. The future of manipulating their spouse, whatever it might be. A future of, but that's what we're talking about. Turn on your anger and off your anger. Don't actually be angry. By the way, if you're really angry, take 10 minutes. What do they say in the world of mental health, Rabbanit? Go close yourself in a room. Calm down. Come back out and pretend you're angry. Don't actually act from anger. The mistakes that we've made as parents, as teachers, as leaders, is when we act from anger. Real anger. It's a real mistake. Amu Chachamim HaRishonim. Our early Chachamim say, Kol HaKo'es. By the way, I'm just going to tell you now, we keep saying, you have to learn Tanakh, you have to learn Tanakh. I'm going to now add a pitch. The fact that nobody studies the Rambam, everything you want to know is here. In all the pages of this book, everything you want to know is here. At the very least, the beginning of the conversation. You can always dive deeper into things. But the fact that Am Yisrael ignores a wholesome book like this one and chooses far inferior books to spend their time studying, it's quite telling. Amu Chachamim HaRishonim. Our early Chachamim say, Kol HaKo'es. Anyone who gets angry, Ki'ilu Oved Avodah Zarah. It's like they're worshipping Avodah Zarah. Why? Hmm? Whatever. Yes. The answer is yes. Yes.
It says that where someone is angry, there's no place for anger.
Oh, so it's kind of Rabbenu HaRambam writes in the Mishnah on Avot. Okay, Avot in chapter 2, Mishnah 9, the Rambam there says that a person who gets angry is because they got. Why do you get angry? Because I got offended. I got insulted. Somebody hurt me. And now all of the reality in this room, what's the Rabbanit's favorite sentence? It's not about you. But it's all about you. At the moment that it's all about you, you're like the arrogant person. You're the person that Kadosh Baruch Hu has no room in the world to spend with him because, listen, either you're the center of the reality or I'm the center of reality. But the moment you think you're the center of the universe is the moment it's like you worship Avodah Zarah. Why is what someone did to you so important that you now can ruin everybody in the world today? Unless you think you're God. You think you're God, so it's like you worship Avodah Zarah. We understand that it's a natural human reaction. We're saying, though, what it's similar to. V'amru, and our rabbis say, she kol hakoes, that anybody who gets angry, im chachamhu, if he's a chacham, chochmato mistaleket mimen. All of his wisdom disappears from him. On a very simple level, when you're angry, even the smartest person loses their mind. Literally, we say they lost their mind. He went crazy. That's a momentary lapse of judgment. That means it doesn't matter how wise you are, but now you're angry. You're a dangerous person. Vim navihu, and if he's a prophet, nevuato mistaneket mimeno. His prophecy leaves him. Baalei kaas, people that are angry, en chayehem chayim. Their life is not life. Because their whole life, they're bitter, and they're angry, and they're mad. And you sometimes see people like this walking down the street, and you say, your face looks like if someone is going to wish you good morning, you're going to murder them. That's what you look like. Now, you imagine, wow, what a rotten person. Can you imagine being them? They have not one moment of happiness in their life. Their life is not worth living. Lefichach, and therefore, tzivu, our rabbis commanded us litrachek min hakas, to distance ourselves from anger. Ad she'anhig atzmo shelo yargish afilu ledvarim hamachisin. The level that you should reach is almost like apathy. All the mental health professionals here don't get upset at me. We're not trying to promote apathy. We're trying to promote a self-confidence of a person then nothing in the world should really bother you. My father used to tell us when we were kids, don't pay attention to the idiots. Yeah, it's really easy to say. It's just really hard to do. The idiots are everywhere, and they're always talking to me. Like they're always telling me things. Yeah, it's very difficult to ignore the idiots. But if you could ignore the idiots, your life is infinitely better. Why would you ruin your whole day because of a fly buzzing around your head? Treat them like it's a fly buzzing around your head. Your opinion is entirely irrelevant to me. It's not anger. It's not ego. This is like, I need to live a calm life today. You don't matter so much. You and your anger and your problems and your insults, it doesn't matter to me. Today I'm having a good day. You're not going to ruin it for me. V'zohi adech tova. That's the right path. V'derech tzadikim. The way of the tzadikim is even more than that. And not everyone is a tzaddik, and you're not demanded to be a tzaddik. Hen aluvin ve'enan olivin. They absorb people's insults, but they never insult other people back. By the way, it doesn't mean, right, but it doesn't mean that they don't feel the insult. They feel it, but perhaps they do something like this. Maybe there's a reason I need to be insulted today. Let's ignore the idiot in front of me right now. If I react to them, then it's about them. Maybe there is a message HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to me today. Maybe I am a jerk. Maybe I do need to work on that. See, tzaddikim, it's all about fixing themselves. So, I don't know, you're a miserable person. You're a wretched creature. But maybe the wretched creature helped me do Teshuvah today. It's a level of tzidkut. It's not apathy to people. It's maybe finding deeper meaning inside of your life experiences. Harav Kook, alav shalom, he mentions that perhaps there's an idea of at the moment that another person feels insult and the natural reaction is anger, tzaddikim have the ability to feel insult, and the love of humanity overcomes the love of oneself. I love you. Clearly you're having a bad day. Clearly you are going through something so bad that you felt the need to walk over to me today and scream at me. So, I'm going to give you a hug. I once had a student, she was on a bus in Israel. The story is going to be made into a clip by one of those dangerous people. Yeah, she was in a seminary and she got on a bus and this guy started screaming at her, "Woman to the back of the bus!" You know, there are buses like that in Israel. "Woman to the back of the bus!" And she asked me, what should she have done? I said, you should have done? You should have given the guy a hug. Now, this guy is sending woman to the back of the bus because he doesn't want to see women. But maybe it would change his life. And this moment of I didn't really mean this. I meant, this person is such a miserable person. There's nothing you're going to say to them. There's nothing you're going to do to them. You're not really rehabilitate this person right now. If anything, have pity on them. Have pity that there are people out there that their life is so miserable. Remember Rabbi Sassino told us on Rosh Hashanah? He said, you think your face is your property, but it's the only part of you that's not your property. Rabbi Sassino told us? He said that you never really see your face. Unless you're looking in the mirror, it's the one part of you you don't look at. Other people have to see your face. That's why our rabbis tell us, you should always greet people with a smiling face. Because that's what people deserve from you. By the way, you want to hear a Lithuanian story? I'll make this for you. The Gaon of Vilna, he was known never to waste time, ever. The Gaon of Vilna, he once asked, he was a chief rabbi, and they asked him they wanted him to be at the city council meetings. He says, unless you're passing a new law, don't have me here. I'm not interested in being at the meeting. I don't have time. So they once invited him to a meeting, and they said, there's a new law being passed. They passed a law that homeless people from other cities, they shouldn't come and collect money here. We have to take care of our poor people first. And the Gaon of Vilna said, I told you not to invite me to meetings that have old laws in them. It's not old law, it's a new law. We're just passing it now. He said, no, that's the law. I don't need to be part of that. They had such a law like that. The Gaon of Vilna used to stand in front of the mirror and he would practice smiling. Why? Just like any other halakha, you need to practice. He wanted to see what was his best face. What was his best smile? By the way, I don't know that you can forgive the Hasidim for the reputation they made for the Gaon of Vilna. You also can't forgive necessarily the Gaon of Vilna for his war on the Hasidim. Both of them, it's an axe to grind. I'm not sticking my head here between two mountains. But let's just say, you should never believe a person's opponents about them. You should get to know them yourself also. And I think that there's a side of the Gaon of Vilna that most people don't know, because you hear about him either from the people who promoted his anger or from the people who suffered from his anger. And that's not necessarily the right way to learn from a person. You sometimes see that the Sephardim, they quoted him a lot, or they quoted the Hasidic masters, and like, you guys don't know. They were blissfully unaware that these two people were leading a war against each other in Europe that involved prisons and Russians and Tsars. They had no clue. They were sitting in Baghdad writing a book, and they saw two books came from Europe, and they didn't even realize that it was such a big deal. There was a rabbi. His name was Rabbi Yosef Zundel of Salant. You heard of him? Rabbi Yosef Zundel of Salant. Haraperetz had a letter in his house. He would always show it to people. Rabbi Yosef Zundel of Salant, when the Sephardim, they were in Israel, the Hasidim came, the Mitnagdim came, they started fighting with each other. The Sephardim started taking sides. So the Hasidim, and Rabbi Yosef Zundel of Salant said, "Dear Sephardim, do us all a favor. You guys are not part of the story. You guys are not. We're both wrong. We've been fighting forever. It's not going to stop now. Just do us a favor and stay out of it. Don't get your hands dirty in this fight." And this is something you see people get involved in. It's not your fight. What is it like? Avinam, you hear a story? There once was a guy, he was in the Beit HaKnesset, and he didn't have where to go for lunch. So the rabbi set him up with a couple, a family, to have him for lunch. My father likes to tell this story. And he comes over to the family, and the whole way home, the husband and wife are screaming at each other. The whole way home. "You stupid, all day." Naftali, you hear? It's not good how they're behaving. That's how they behave. Yeah? They come home. They climb up 3 stories to their apartment. And all of a sudden, the wife says, "Yeah, that's how you're going to talk to me?" She took all the food off the plata, threw it out the window. He says, "Are you crazy? That's what you're going to do?" He took all the china, all the plates, all the cups, he threw them out the window. And the guy says, "Yeah." He took the table, he threw it out the window. And they looked at him and said, "What are you doing? Why are you getting involved?" He said, "Oh, I thought we were eating lunch outside." Sometimes you get involved in a story. It's not your story. Stay out of it. So here you have. Always. I thought we were eating lunch outside. So, tzadikim shomi'im cherpatan ve'enan mashivin. They hear their denigration, that people embarrass them, and they don't respond. By the way, this is not talking about denigration of Torah. It's like a personal offense. There are different halachot about people who are denigrating Torah scholars because of the Torah. That's something else. Osin me'ahava usmechin ba'isurin. They serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of love. They don't care so much about the suffering. Aleim HaKatuv omer. And about them, the Pasuk says, Ve'ohavav ketzet hashemesh b'gvurato. The people who love HaKadosh Baruch Hu are like the sun that comes out in all of its strength. What does it mean? Think about the sun. The sun doesn't get affected by the fact that it's dark outside. Tomorrow morning, the sun is going to rise, and it will shine, and it will blow all the darkness out of the water. And when the darkness comes, it'll lower its head again, and it will be light, and then it will be dark. And that's the way the tzaddikim are. They have integrity. They know what's right. They know what's wrong. The world doesn't scare them so much. The people around them don't shake them up so much. They focus on the goal, and that's Mori Harav, who once told me, Rabbi Yonatan, there's nothing they can do to me they haven't already done to me. It's the most freeing thing in the world. To just do, because you don't care. Okay, that's Kaas, anger, Baalei Chema. Let's go back to the Rambam. Tomer's mission was successful? Yeah, okay. So, Uval machashava ra'a, and a person, I know, that's why, and a person who has bad thoughts, remember we spoke last time from the Moreh Nevuchim, we had a whole shiur on how thinking about avirot is worse than doing them. I don't want to get stuck on that again. V'amitchaber l'rasha, somebody who connects themselves to a rasha. Let's talk about that person. Go back to chapter 6 of the Laws of Deot. Rabbanit, you want to help us out? Zev, we're on page 136, chapter 6. No, back.
52. Yeah.
Aleph. Rabbenu HaRambam writes, Derech beriyato shel ha'adam. It is the way that a person was created. Liot nimshach b'de'otav u'ma'asav achar re'av v'chaverav. We've read this together in Kehillat Shaar HaShamayim many times. That a person is attracted and they're drawn by the peer pressure, by their friends, by society. V'noheg b'minhag anshe medinato. And they behave like the people of their country. I have said this a million times and I'll say it again. My wife never understood this till she moved to San Diego. When we meet Jews, nice people from New York, we always feel like they're rude. Always. And they're not trying to be rude. Really, in their society, they're not rude people. But in our society, they are. You walk into a store. What do you want? What do you want? That's a weird way to say hello. Yeah? Or you tell a person, good morning, like you do on Governor Drive. And they say, do I know you? Whoa. Like, what is going on over here? But that's a whole culture like that. Now, I'm not telling you it's bad. I mean, I think it's bad, but I'm not telling you it's bad. I'm telling you that if you live there, it doesn't matter how much you're a tzaddik and how much Torah you learn. You're influenced by the style of people that are there. I'm not convinced that San Diegans actually care about your day. They just live in a culture where, good morning, how are you? Have a nice day. Enjoy your walk. What a cute dog you have. Doesn't matter. People say things like that all day long. Think about it. When you walk into Trader Joe's. For those of you who don't live in San Diego is like living in Trader Joe's. Okay? I can say it like that?
Yeah.
You ask the person, hey, do you know where the dried pineapple is? Sure, let me show you. They walk you over to the aisle. I don't want you to walk with me. They walk with you anyways. That's what it feels like. I'm not telling you that person at Trader Joe's actually cares about you, but likely part of the hiring job description is the grumpy people they send to the other grocery store. And the smiling people they keep in Trader Joe's. There's some airlines like that I fly. I flew an airline recently. I told my wife, I hate this airline. It was the only one flying where I go. The flight attendants on that airline, it's like if you took every person that could ever have been rejected from flight attendant school, that's who they put in the airline. Every one of them is worse than the next one. And it's like, whoa, you got a plane full of the least qualified people in the hospitality industry. You know how much money I paid for this flight? Yeah, we were on a plane together. The guy started scolding everybody on the plane. You see empty seats? You didn't pay for them. So don't you dare get up and move your bags in an empty seat, because if you want, you can pay for it. Like, whoa, relax. I actually paid $637 for this chair, and I don't appreciate being spoken to the way that Yair gets spoken to at preschool. Especially not by you. But it's an unbelievable experience. Then you go to some airlines. Okay, just for the record, I was not talking about El Al, but you go to some airlines. You go to some airlines. El Al's slogan is "Hachi b'bayit ba'olam." I have to say, as a person who genuinely dislikes flying El Al, my experiences are almost always negative, almost always, and it doesn't help that I look very religious. Just for the record, I inherit baggage that's not mine. Okay, but I think it's fair to say that from the era of COVID and through the era of this war, that when we needed to get back and forth to Israel, and when soldiers had to get back on planes, and when I needed to get to Hara Peretz or to get to Hara Peretz's wife, and there was only one airline flying when rockets are flying over your head, so I'm happy that El Al exists. I just, as a friend of El Al, would give them advice that when they say it's Hachi b'bayit ba'olam, it feels most like home in the world. You didn't have to choose the shuk to experience as home. Yeah? Yes? It's not just the shuk. Okay, I'm speaking Ure Betuv Yerushalayim. Yeah? I mean, your Israel experience begins at check-in. Okay? It doesn't have to be that way. We know enough people in the world. You go to enough hotels, enough restaurants where people smile at you and they're nice to you, and they make just as much money. And they don't lose anything. Nothing bad happened. Says the Rambam, it's very important to recognize that where you live affects who you are. Hara Peretz always told us, I want you to make Aliyah to Israel. I want you to speak Hebrew. I want you to live here. I want you to raise your families here, but I don't want you. One guy in our shul said, you're Canadian? Please don't stop being Canadian. He said, please don't stop standing in line. Please don't stop saying please and thank you. Please educate a next generation of Israelis that it's okay liot menumas. It's okay to be polite. It's okay. It's not going to hurt anybody. So we need that. They said all the Americans make aliyah to Israel and they start behaving like Israelis. So we don't need more Israelis. We need someone to water down the. Now, Chevra, thank you, Pastor. Doesn't even know what he wants from him. Thank you. Thank you for what? What did I do? Yeah. I once was in a store and the guy's like, "You speak Hebrew, but you're not from here, are you?" I said, "Not from here." That's true. He knew. He knew. It's like Esther. I'm sure when you go to TJ, they know that you're not from TJ. They can tell. How do you know? Because you can tell cultures. You can tell different people apart from different people, and it's a good thing and a bad thing and whatever it is in between.
Tea, coffee shop. Never ask for extra coffee.
They get really angry about it. So, and therefore, Rabbenu HaRambam says that it's a mitzvah. Look in Halacha Bet. Mitzvah taseh lihidabek b'chachamim. It's a mitzvah to cling to the chachamim. Why? Kedei lilmod mima'asehem. So you can live based on the way that they behaved. You don't have to tell. Rabbi Sensino was here. He's not here now, so I could talk about him. You know my feelings about Rabbi Sensino. You know they're very positive. You also know that I happen to think that he's more qualified than the current position that he occupies, and that some of the people who occupy other positions are much less qualified than him, and I'm just leaving it like that. I want to say, when Rabbi Sensino told you stories on Chag, that when he was in high school, he went to the Kotel tunnels before they were open with Rabbi Getz. Rabbi Getz is a North African chacham, I think Tunisian. I don't hold me to it. I don't remember exactly where he was born. He made aliyah to Israel, became the rabbi of all the holy places. You may recognize him because he was very distinct in his clothing. He wore a white robe and a white shtreimel. Yes, his son died fighting for the old city of Yerushalayim. He was the Rosh Yeshivat Mekubalim. Rabbi Sensino told you that when he was the Rosh Yeshivat Mekubalim, he only allowed Kabbalists in the yeshiva who had served in the Israeli military. Yeah, he was a very special person. When Rabbi Sensino tells you he was 14 or 15 years old, and that's who he was hanging out with, some of the people that would critique Rabbi Sensino or not look up to him, I would like to ask them which chachamim they knew when they were 14 or 15 years old, if any. When he tells you that he learned years by Chacham Mordechai Eliyahu, I'm telling you, the chief rabbi of Israel. And he has stories and stories. Sometimes we sit together and we just stories and stories and stories and stories. That his simicha is signed by Rabbi Shalom Mesas, the chief rabbi of Morocco, who then became the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim. And he has stories and stories and stories. Or that his classmate was Rabbi Yosef Kapach's grandson, who used to take him to visit his grandfather. He used to go down to the basement of Rabbi Kapach and sit with him and listen to him teaching Rambam. You're talking about a person. Someone asked me on the Chag, how do you see such good midot in a person? Like, he was really a special, kind, took care of his mother, you saw things like that. He's going to hate me when he sees this recording. I'm going to assume he's too busy to listen to this recording. I said, it's very simple. Aside from that, he's a good person who works on himself, who learns Torah, he really clung to the Talmidei Chachamim that he learned from. You can see, I can tell a person who grew up with Chachamim and a person who didn't. It's very simple. And in this, that's something you don't learn in yeshiva. It's not something you get a diploma in when you get ordained as a rabbi. It's something, who are you emulating? When you say emunat chachamim, they use this word a lot. Orthodox people like to use this word. Emunas chachamim. You have to have belief in the rabbis. Chacham Faor points out that only somebody who does not know Hebrew grammar could say emunat chachamim. How do you say belief in chachamim? Emunah b'chachamim. In the chachamim. Emunat chachamim means the emunah of the chachamim. The rabbis are tasking you with acquiring the same behaviors, the same relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu that the chachamim have. You are supposed to strive to emunat chachamim. You want to be just like the chachamim. That's a whole different thing than worshiping people. And the fact that people can peddle this emunat chachamim on people is only because they rely on your ignorance, that you don't even know Hebrew grammar well enough to challenge their translation of a phrase. And that already is telling of everything else. I think there's really one more. Can we make the most out of this last 10 minutes so I could finish this before Yom Kippur? It's okay with you? I know I'm going overtime. We're supposed to go till 9, but it's okay. If you're too tired, I understand. I know. I need to use every last minute that I have to get this. Let's look back at the Rambam. The Rambam writes in Halacha Vav. Chol elu hadevarim. All of these things. V'chayotze behen, and everything similar to them. I'm on page 231, Zev. Or page 82. Yeah. Chol elu hadevarim v'chayotze behen. All of these things and everything that is similar to them. We've been discussing all the different types of people who have a hard time doing teshuvah. Afal pi sheme'akevin et teshuvah. Even though they hold back the teshuvah, enan mone'in et teshuvah. They don't stop the teshuvah. Meaning, just because it will be harder for you to do teshuvah does not mean that it is impossible to do teshuvah. It's very important to understand this. The Rambam made lists of people who cannot do teshuvah, not because they're not able to, but because it's unlikely that they will. It's improbable, but not impossible. If a person is successfully able to do teshuvah from this, this person is a person who did teshuvah, and he has a portion in olam haba. And about this, I wanted just to take one example. When it comes to teshuvah, and here I'm going to veer off the deep end. So I'm going to do something I don't usually do here, and especially I don't usually do in a Rambam class. But it's okay. It's our Rambam class. I want to take you out of the dimension of Rambam and Chachmei Sfarad and the realm that we're familiar with, and take you somewhere else, no less important, just different. Harav Kook alav shalom wrote a book on Teshuvah. It's called Orot Teshuvah, the Lights of Teshuvah. We studied it before together. And the original edition of the book, I don't know if anyone ever saw it before, is an ugly yellow. Like an ugly yellow, as I can tell you. The idea was that Rav Kook used to call Teshuvah a lot the sun of Teshuvah, Shemesh Teshuvah. And he always wanted the books on Teshuvah to be bright and radiating. And I guess in the olden days, that was what yellow was looking like. The newer edition of the book, for example, is like this. There's a letter from Rabbi Moshe Tzvi Neria. I'm not saying anything about ugly. If you're wearing it, how can I call it ugly? Rabbi Moshe Tzvi Neria wrote a letter to the author of this edition of Orot Teshuvah. The author of this edition of Orot Teshuvah is Rabbi Yaakov Halevy Filber. I have here notes from when I was in high school. I just discovered them the other day when I was looking through some of them. It's cute to see the way you think many years ago. And how small I wrote. Some of the things here, I don't know if you could see my handwriting over here. So we have, he writes here that it's very important, lo lishkoach, gam ha'atifa chayevet liot bihira u'meira. You have to make sure that the cover of this book is bright and illuminating. Ho'il v'gam hi mishameshet pirush l'ri'ato miuched shemran harav et shemesh HaTeshuvah, because it's also this book shows the sun of the Teshuvah. Harav Kook writes in the 4th chapter of Orot Teshuvah, and I have an English edition of this book, and I could not find an English edition of this book in my house because sometimes when you use too many books, you don't remember where you put all of them. I couldn't find it, so I have it, but I don't. I think it's called Lights on Teshuvah. It could be that's what the book is called. I think so. You know where it is? I wonder if I should have asked you.
There's like a sequel on it.
I don't actually know what it looks like because I didn't actually read from it. I just have it in the event that I need to read Harav Kook, and Harav Kook has a lot of Hebrew that I don't understand. Why? Harav Kook was making up Hebrew as he was writing. It's a very different Hebrew. Harav Kook's Hebrew, the old Israeli, they were like the old Zionist Hebrew thinkers would all go listen to Rav Kook talk. And it was very obnoxious to hear Rav Kook talk. Because Rav Kook was insistent that you had to speak Hebrew with an Ashkenazi accent. Yep. But Rav Kook's spoken Hebrew was Ashkenazi Hebrew. Shalom, ma shalomcha. Like that was his Hebrew. Yeah, that's how he spoke Hebrew. Thank God, for whatever reason, the state of Israel and all its racism towards the Faradim decided not to go with that model. I'm very grateful. Imagine if that's how we had to speak Hebrew. Imagine if we told people Shabbos Shalom. Yeah, like that was our. I'm not making. That would be a very different Israel than with the Israel that you know now. There you go. So here he says that he calls Teshuvah a son. שוטפים הם זרמי התשובה. הפרטית והכללית, דמיונם כגלי שלהבות שעל גוף השמש. The streams of Teshuvah are like the firing flames that are on top of the ball of the sun. And he talks about all the different colors that come out of the sun. The Shemesh HaTeshuvah, the sun of the Teshuvah. Sun in general is a symbol of dynamic. It's a dynamic experience. Rav Kook really believed in the sun of Teshuvah, but one of the things that really stuck with me once in Rav Kook was about the lightning of Teshuvah. That when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to do Teshuvah, He helps you. He helps you. How does He help you? You're in the dark. There are no lights. There's no electricity. It's dark. There's no moon. All of a sudden, there's lightning. And you see. You see for 1 second, wow, that's the direction I need to go. And then it gets dark again. That's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps us do Teshuvah. I want you to remember that. Because I'm now going to quote you from another rabbi. The last of the Lubavitcher Rebbes, alav shalom. I know that Lubavitchers call him the current Lubavitcher Rebbe, but I can't possibly call someone who died in 1994 the current Rebbe. Yes? The last of the Lubavitcher Rebbes, alav shalom, has a commentary in Pirkei Avot, and he's talking about Rabbi Yoshua ben Perachia. And very briefly, Rabbi Yoshua ben Perachia is the author of the 6th Mishnah in the first chapter of Pirkei Avot. Rabbi Yoshua ben Perachia אומר, עשה לך רב, וקנה לך חבר, והבדן את כל האדם לקו זכות. Make for yourself a rabbi, acquire for yourself a friend, and judge everyone favorably. Lubavitch Rebbe in general, his shita is that when he comments, he obviously comments according to Chassidut, but there's one section of his writings which mostly attract me, and that is where he tries to connect the saying of the person to the person who said it. I mean, if Rabbi Yoshua ben Perachia had one chance to teach something, why is he doing this? Why is this the one sentence he leaves behind to the Jewish people? And when you start to look at it like that, you start to connect the dots. And he's one of the few people, maybe the only one, that really thought like this about Pirkei Avot. And he shares with us the life of Rabbi Yoshua ben Perachia. I've told you before, he was the rabbi of Yeshua HaNotzri, of Jesus. And he had a very famous story in which they were coming back from Egypt. And there's a whole shiur that I have on Yeshua. I don't have to do it again now. They're coming back from Egypt, and he looked at the innkeeper's wife, and Rabbi Yoshua ben Perachia threw him out of the yeshiva. And Yeshu kept trying to come back and do Teshuvah, and he kept rejecting him. And then one time he thought, I'll accept him now. But he walked in at the precise moment that he was saying Shema Yisrael. Now this is obviously an Agadah, so there's a lot of reading into the story that we can do together, but not right now. And Yeshu leaves, he leaves, and he involves himself in sorcery, and he causes the Jewish people to leave Torah Mitzvah. At a certain point, Rabbi Yoshua ben Perachia goes to look for him. He says, I want you to come do Teshuvah. Chazor b'cha. Amar lo, Yeshu tells him, Mikubelani mimcha. I already received in Kabbalah from you. Shachoteh umachti, that a person who sins, and now I've already caused other people to sin, en maspikin biyado la'asot teshuvah. They don't help him from Shamayim to do teshuvah. They don't let him do teshuvah. Says Lubavitcher Rebbe, v'yesh li sh'on, harei gam Yoshua ben Perachia yada klal zeh. If Yoshua ben Perachia is the one who taught him he cannot do teshuvah, so then, u'madua efo amar lo chazor b'cha? Why did he tell him to do teshuvah if he knew? I mean, what is Yeshu saying? You taught me I cannot do teshuvah. Well, if I taught you, then why didn't I know that? Lubavitch Rebbe says you should look in the Tanya. It's probably the first time I've ever read you Tanya on a camera. Okay? It says, look in the Tanya, in chapter 25 of the Tanya. So, who wrote the Tanya? The first Lubavitch Rebbe. Yes, Admor Zaken. He was a student of the Maggid of Mezrich. You guys say Mezrich? Or you say Mezrich? Mil'elu Milra. Who he was the student of the Baal Shem Tov. Interesting, the Baal Shem Tov's son didn't necessarily succeed him. That's a Hasidic story for your own time, but his student did. And therefore the Maggid of Mezrich also, his students succeeded him. And there is a switch in the history of Hasidut where instead of the more rightful students of the rabbi inheriting the teacher, that the sons began to inherit the teacher. In Lubavitch, you see this already in generation number 2. So, if you look in the Shulchan Aruch of the first Lubavitch Rebbe, you'll notice most of it is missing. And a lot of that, I'm going to recommend to you the book by Professor Moshe Rossman. In the back of the book is a chapter on the history, or the lack of history, of the Lubavitcher Hasidim. They have a knack for inventing their own history. Most of Chabad history is built on forgeries that they created. They might not even know it. So this generation probably has no clue. But we're talking about a deep programming of history, not just to make Chabad Hasidut what it is, but to put themselves as superior to all the other Hasidim that ever existed. So yeah, but it's mamash a very deep kind of revisionist history, and I recommend you look in the writings of Professor Moshe Rossman. Even just that chapter would be worth buying his book called The Quest for the Founder of Hasidut, I think is the name of the book. In the back, I recommend you look at it. It's not coming from a malicious place, rather from a historically accurate place. The first Lubavitcher Rebbe had a son who was not supposed to inherit him. Instead, the one who was supposed to inherit him, founder of Hasidism, is that what it's called? Maybe. Maybe the subtitle is Quest for the Founder of Hasidut. Rabbi Dov Ber Schneerson of Lubavitch, Alav Shalom. There was another student, his name was the founder of Hasidism. I knew the Quest was in it. Very good. And Rabbi Aharon was the primary disciple of the Baal Tanya, the oldest, he's also older than the son. And he, really, when the rabbi died, he continued the Hasidut. But there were politics internally. The Hasidim had a major split. It doesn't seem that the majority went with the son, rather the minority went with the son. And here's where the politics step in. You see, someone says to the son, I've been learning with your father for many years before you even knew how to learn. Your father, when he was writing this Tanya, taught it to me. You came later in the scene, and frankly, I don't think you really understand what your father's talking about. And that led to much politics. At the time, there was a big push inside of the Hasidut to disown the rabbi, the student, instead of the son. And many of the Hasidim rebelled by not giving the son the handwriting of the father. And that's why much of that Shulchan Aruch was missing, because they couldn't get their hands on it. That's why Chabad also calls themselves Chabad Lubavitch, because Lubavitch is a village in the middle of nowhere in Russia. And Chabad is the name of the movement. So I want to give you an example that you might understand. Shiviti, New York. Shiviti, San Diego. Shiviti is the movement. San Diego is just the place. Chabad is a movement started by the first Lubavitcher Rebbe. His students carried that movement to wherever they went. So you have famously Kapust. That's Chabad Kapust. You have Chabad, all kinds of other Chabads. Chabad Lubavitch is the one that stayed in the family. You're familiar with Sunnis and Shiites? Ali, or you know what I'm talking about? Similar idea. Similar idea. The ones that survived the war, the great fortune of Chabad Lubavitch is that all the other Chabad Rebbe's died in the Holocaust. And therefore, the only dynasty of Chabad that survived is the biological dynasty of Chabad, which obviously they read into, we won. So they died because God made us win. There's some real deep stuff in there. And almost in every generation of Chabad Hasidut, you're going to find a war over the throne, including this last generation. The last generation, the last Lubavitcher Rebbe, him and his brother-in-law had stiff competition over who would be the next Rebbe. I'm not here to teach that. I'm here now to tell you what the Tanya says. I have the books of the student in my house. So the commentary on the Tanya by the student of the Baal Tanya, it's very special. It's a very special book. It's obviously not studied in Chabad because, maybe some tzaddikim, but I once thought of teaching a Tanya class here. There was a lady in the community who really wanted me to teach Tanya. I said I would only teach it in a different way than other people study it. And when I asked Rav Peretz about it, he recommended gently against it. Why? He said that this certain rabbis, certain styles of teaching, the Tanya in particular, they create already programmed into the books are a programming of loyalty, allegiance. This is the only right way to God. And he said it's dangerous if people don't know how to. Here's what the Tanya says. Alav Shalom, Rabbi Shneur Zalman says the following. Ve'av sha'omer, even though a person who says, Echeta ve'ashuv, somebody who sins and says, I will do Teshuvah on Yom Kippurim. Let me just do the Avera now, I'll do Teshuvah later. What did the Rambam say? En maspikim biyado lasot Teshuvah. They don't let him do Teshuvah. Hainu she'en machzikim yado liot lo shat kosher lasot Teshuvah. It means that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is not going to go out of his way to help this person do Teshuvah. Avalim dachak hasha'ah, but if he forces it, ve'asat Teshuvah, and he does Teshuvah, en lecha davar she'omed b'vnei Teshuvah. There is nothing in the world that stands before the force that is Teshuvah. You can have curtains that are sun-blocking curtains, and then you'll never see the sun of Teshuvah. But if you force yourself to open the curtains, then, maybe then, you'll be able to do Teshuvah. The Lubavitch Rebbe answered this question then with a piece of the Tanya. And he says, Yeshu lost his privilege that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would help him do Teshuvah. He already reached a place that was so low, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was not going to help him anymore. But his rabbi was trying to tell him, you can force yourself. You can overcome the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not help you. It's going to be hard. Because you see that when we start doing Teshuvah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps us. All of a sudden, all the doors start opening. All the paths start being illuminated. It's not going to happen for you. But if you fight hard enough, you can do Teshuvah. And Yeshu, like the loser he was, because ultimately, Yeshu is a person who didn't behave out of confidence. He didn't behave out of righteousness. He's the example of a person who behaved out of the lowest moral standards possible. If you look at the writings of Chacham Shaul, the Gospel according to the Jews, you'll understand the Sephardic perspective of Yeshu. It's very different than all the anti-missionary people. I'm not in that camp. I'm not here to mock Yeshu. Yeshu created a fundamentally different kind of religion himself. I'm not saying the Gospels and the students, himself. What our rabbis reported to us about him shares a person who was of such a bitter personality, such a horrible disposition, that it's obvious the Jews didn't follow him. Because a person like that had nothing to offer us. Nothing. Forget it, Mashiach, not the Mashiach. It didn't matter. Mashiach, you can't be a Mashiach. You're not even a human being. Yeshu, for one, hated Goyim. Hated them. How many times in the New Testament he calls them dogs? Our rabbis were allergic to people who hated Goyim. Yeshu was cruel. He curses plants that they should die. Why don't you bless plants? They should give you fruit. Why curse them? Yeshu hangs out with all kinds of low lives of people, prostitutes, criminals. Not because he was rehab. Of course, everybody tells you they're hanging out with the mafia because they're fixing them and helping them do Teshuvah. But we knew Yeshu as a person who was hanging out with bad people. Yeshu's buried. He's buried with all the tax collectors in Yerushalayim. These are the people that would go suck their brothers and sisters' blood. They would take money from them. The Yeshu students were no angels either. Paul is busy hunting the heads of Christians. He's a scalp hunter. He's cutting their head, bring them to Rome. You're not talking about good people. Our Chachamim refrained from involving themselves in Yeshu, not because of theology and because of Mashiach and Isaiah 53, because the person was a wretched, miserable creature. But even that kind of person could do Teshuvah. And Rabbi Shimon Perachian, when he saw that he was unsuccessful, he added one teaching. Vehevedan et kol adam lekav zechut. Judge everyone favorably. Yeshu is a rasha. I should not have treated him like a rasha. I should have judged him favorably. I should have kept him inside of the yeshiva. Because maybe inside of the yeshiva I could have fixed him. But the moment I threw him out, look what I cost. He felt the weight of that. You don't have to judge evil people favorably. But Yehoshua Bracha says, don't judge good people favorably. Hevedan et kol adam lekav zechut. Judge everybody favorably. And that's what Rabbi Bracha was trying to accomplish. Do Teshuvah. Even though it's hard, they're not going to help you, but it's the best thing you can do. That's the same message I have for all of us. Do Teshuvah. Doesn't matter how hard it is. Bezrat Hashem, until next year, we'll open up the Rambam's laws of Teshuvah together. For right now, Chevra, it's been an incredible Elul and Tishrei together. I appreciate so much that we're learning from this. And again, Tomer, thank you for these beautiful books from Eretz Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should allow us to continue learning His Torah and following on a path of righteousness. Bezrat Hashem.